Now, how's your picture? How's your
It's
thing?
better.
Okay.
All
Okay.
right.
So we're get to talk about some fun things today. I think
Mm-hmm.
interesting stuff.
Yep.
Um, we did try to record this one time before, so again, if I say, "Did I say this already?" or whatever, even though I do that a lot, even when we haven't recorded it before. So anyway, if we say maybe I said this last time or something like that, then that's what's happening there. So
That's okay.
okay.
Um, okay, so we are back with Gudrid. We had an interlude to explain and set a foundation for the Christianity, paganism, and that whole layout. And when we last left Gudrid, she was spending the winter at her father's house because she did not accept the proposal to Einar, we believe. Then we see her father hold his appointed banquet with all his friends and family, and he is into shock and awe because he's like, not only am I insulted that Orm and my family friends thought this would be a good idea for me to, marry my daughter Gudrid to
Mm-hmm.
Einar for money purposes, but I actually have to leave now. I'm so dishonored.
Yes.
He stands up and says, I'm going to actually leave. And so he does. And
Yeah.
the first time we saw Gudrid, we saw her in a doorway at Orm's house. And the next time we actually see Gudrid in the sagas is on the prow of a ship that's being shipwrecked. And what has happened is Gudrid's father has built a ship, has talked his 35 or so of his friends into resettling in Greenland. They're going to go where Eric the Red has set up a settlement. And as we know, as we'll get into, um, it's an open boat and it's probably a knar, which is a big flat bottom, big boat
Mm-hmm.
meant to carry cargo and people, but it's not comfortable. And they actually take off right before summer, and it takes them till the beginning of next autumn, correct, to get to Greenland. So in some sagas, it has them kind of getting lost and it takes them a while. Well, we meet
Yeah.
next with Gudrid on the prow of this ship, kind of shipwrecked in Greenland. There's different stories about who rescues them or not, but she and her father have left Iceland. Orm and his wife are with them. Several other people are with them. And what happens on the ship, as we discussed, was half of the people don't make it, that they started with out within Iceland. So we can assume that they're either Gudrid is seeing most certainly Orn and her foster mother die. Um,
Yeah.
they just don't survive the passage. So now we have Gudrid, who has just traveled. We all this buildup of our well-traveled woman. She has just traveled. She's a young or an older teenager. She's on the ship. She's survived this voyage. They probably have the bodies of their loved ones. If not thrown into the ocean, they have them with them so they can perform a burial for them. Um, and she survives with her life. Her father survives, several other people. And they reach Greenland, but the saga that makes the most sense has them not go straight to Eric the Red's property. It has
Right.
them because of this shipwreck um, end up on another man's settlement in Greenland. And as is the custom, since it's almost winter, the man is almost obligated to keep them there over winter, give them safe harbor. And this is where we enter into, we get a lot of information about Gudrid in this one. And we're just going to dig right into it. So we
Yeah.
see her entering the shores of Greenland, and she's about to have a an amazing experience that kind of defines her mission in life almost and who she is. So on
Yeah.
that note, where what where do you want to dig into this story first?
Well, as you were talking, I was just writing down things that grabbed me in this story in that part of it. Um, First was the feast that her dad had to give, right? And
Mhm.
in what we know about feasts, it would have been the spring feast, so the April feast, which would have been a gathering of it would have been a mini thing, right? A mini thing, which is a thing is community leaders, noble people gathering together in the spring to kind of discuss local issues, changes to laws, sentencing criminals on a local level. And then one of the important things they do at this spring feast, who is thrown by the big man in charge. So the fact that he's hosting this feast tells you kind of his clout in that community that he's in.
Gudrid's
Um,
father.
yeah, Gudrid's
Yeah.
father. Um, and then in that feast is an important time because it's when they assign the people that will go to the All Thing, which is the
Okay.
September feast, the autumn feast. And that's everybody. That's all of the Iceland things come together for the All Thing. And for him to announce that A, he's not going to go to that All Thing to represent them, and B, I'm leaving, would have been a really big deal, you know?
Mhm.
And there's some other points I thought of in that with him and his financial situation, he was a really close, tight buddy with Eric the Red, who at this time was being outlawed and exiled. And so my curiosity is, did his departure have something to do with that? Or, I mean, Eric the Red had already gone to Greenland with his family by this time and was established enough to have a destination that Gudrid's dad thought they were aiming for, right, when they left.
Mhm. Mhm.
They didn't make it, like you said, they got shipwrecked and ended up at this other guy's farm, but for the winter. But he was not there was some local fighting going on, and the
Mhm.
the guy that Eric the Red had made mad and made upset was a pretty big leader in that community. It was Thorkel, Thorkel,
Mhm.
and so that means Gudrid's dad, Torbjorn, would have been in trouble with that guy too. So he probably saw no future financially and no real future socially or at that
Yeah.
point too. So he made that announcement. I thought that was interesting. What a important, it wasn't just a Sunday dinner that he announced it. It was at their community gathering, important feast. So I
That
thought
is
it was
such a good
interesting.
point and a good context to that because it in the sagas, sometimes they'll move you forward, pretty abruptly, and so it
Yeah.
feels sometimes like, "Oh, now
Now
he's
we're,
leaving. Mad
yeah.
about the proposal, and now he's leaving," but obviously there's more behind that, and more preparation had to be made for that. Um,
Yeah.
as in the saga, it says, "At the banquet, Thorborn called for silence." So he's definitely the boss of this, and he said, "Here have I passed a goodly lifetime and have experienced the goodwill of men toward me and their affection. And methinks our relations together have been pleasant. But now I begin to find myself in straitened circumstances, although my estate has hitherto been accounted a respectful one." So that kind of speaks to some underlying
Yeah.
um,
Amongst
tensions.
his men, he's a great man, but there's
Right.
this other group of even greater men, I think. Thorkel is legendary, and people even in Iceland now will trace their lineage back to this Thorkel guy. I'm pretty sure.
Mm. So they crossed
Um,
the wrong guy then.
he crossed the wrong guy because Eric the Red crossed the wrong. He's guilt by association, I think.
Okay,
So,
so
yeah,
it's almost like Trumpian in a way that he's got
a
himself
little
into a
bit.
situation and he's
Yes.
gonna announce.
Like,
It was
whoa.
my idea to leave, you know?
Right.
Um, but he's standing there and he says that, and then the next sentence is his decision. Now will I rather abandon my farming than lose my honor, and rather leave the country than bring disgrace upon my family. Wherefore I have now concluded to put that promise to the test which my friend Eric the Red made. It is my present design to go to Greenland this summer, if matters fare as I wish. And the saga continues. The folk were greatly astonished at this plan of Thorborn's, for he was blessed with many friends, but they were convinced that he was so firmly fixed in his purpose that it would do them no good to dissuade him from it. So Thorborn sells his lands, buys a ship, and 30 persons joined him in the voyage. Among those were Orm and his wife Haldis and other of Thorborn's friends who would not part from him. And then they put to sea. So it says when they set sail, the weather was favorable, but then it became a very tedious journey. And then illness appeared among their people. Orm and Haldis died and half their company.
Yeah. And that's the other thing I wrote down too, is that there's a reference in one of the sagas to how they handled their dead bodies at this time. And it was just a really quick reference, but it caught my attention because I think it's later on when Gudrid is married to Thornstein, Eric the Red's son, and he's dying. Spoiler
Mm-hmm.
alert. But or maybe it's Thorvald. But one of the Eric the Red's sons, who mother's very Christian, father's very pagan, refers to the fact that they haven't been burying their dead properly in
Right,
consecrated ground. And I
right.
wonder if this journey with Gudrid and her dad and Orm, and there's people, we know people are dying because they tell us that Orm. We also think we hope maybe some boats turned around and went back, but there's no proof of that, or no, there's no saga that really talks about anybody that came back, which Iceland's pretty thorough with its sagas that
Yeah.
I know of. Um, so I wonder what they would have done with these bodies, because I almost feel like they weren't keeping them to put them in consecrated ground at this point, but maybe they were because her dad is so hardcore Christian. I just think it's a side thing, but I'm just really interested in if they buried them at sea, if they kept them. I know they did that a lot. They kept bodies, and then so they could take them back to Iceland to sacred ground.
As a pagan practice, it does seem as though, and sometimes they bury them in situ or where the death happened, but it almost seems like they bring them back quite often.
They burn. Pagan would be they would burn them. Christian would be that they bury them, and so, but in consecrated ground.
Mm-hmm.
So then, I mean, then I go and like, was this so Eric the Red's wife, Tord Hill, was the first one to have a Christian church in Greenland. Did they know they could bury them? I don't know. It's just a I mean, it's a real side note, but it's just so sad to think of Gudrid with these bodies and the sad conflict of what do we do with these bodies? Do we bury them in a Christian burial? You kind of had to decide someone's fate, literally,
Yeah.
based
Yeah.
on what you thought they were believing. So to
Which,
identify yourself as a Christian or a pagan was a big deal, so you could get buried
oh,
the right way, right?
that's a huge responsibility.
Right.
That's like maybe making a claim because they were straddling this
Mhm.
even in Iceland in this 1000, they were trying to combine the Christianity that's beginning and the pagan traditional Norse practices of burial and death, and how do you live with your household magic but still
Right.
Christian. And
Right.
in one of these sagas, what was interesting to me is they talk about this consecrated ground and how the bodies in Greenland hadn't been buried in that. So what sometimes they would do is bury poles,
Mhm.
stick a pole up through the heart of the person because they know it's not consecrated ground. So they stick a pole through the heart of that buried person so that when the clergy comes, they can pull that pole out and pour holy water
Yeah.
in to, you know, consecrate the grounds. So it seems like they're a little unsettled,
Yeah.
and an unsettled with your dead is not a happy place to
It's
be.
a scary place to be for them
Yeah,
at that time.
because
Yeah.
they'll visit you and
Hmm.
they'll tell you things, and um so it is interesting. So then you wonder, okay, well, where does Gudrid stand with this Christianity? If
Right.
Halldis was, her guide or her flaga, as far as her Celtic or pagan traditions went, if she learned at her foot, but her father was kind of the Christianity thing, she really is straddling both sides.
Yeah. And we'll see in the story we're going to get into now how she's so level headed. She's not emotional. She makes a pretty non emotional, very pragmatic decision in a minute about
Mhm,
straddling those two worlds and how she does it, basically.
mhm,
She's in a very black and white situation, which we can get into if we want. Those are just, oh, and the other thing that I wrote down, and then is that there are some sagas, and we've touched on this, that will say that this shipwreck happened, probably with her and her dad and the group, but
mhm,
they notably point out that she was with her first husband named
mm,
Torhir, Thorir. Is that
mhm,
correct?
mhm,
So that's where you will hear sometimes how many marriages she has, and sometimes they'll refer to this first that she's married actually 3 times to this first guy who was a Norse man,
mhm.
um, and that she was shipwrecked with them. So that's one of the sagas that tell it that way. So
Yeah, kinda muddies the water a little bit.
yeah, it's okay.
So we
I
try to take it down to its barest thread, which is we know Gudrid arrived in a ship with her
Right,
father. We know they shipwrecked and landed in Greenland with, deaths. And then you'll see there's debate on who rescued the ship. Some say it's Leif Erikson as a Christian, you know, saving these group of Christian pilgrims. Well, that's obviously cloaked in some 11th century, the descendants who are translating these things. But
right. And that oh, go ahead.
no, no, I'm done.
Well, and the way they tell that Leaf story, I told this last time, but the way the saga tells the way that Leaf rescued her group, they were stranded on a rock and he sailed in such a cool way as to kind of clip past them, kind of come in and then check out the people and then zoom away again and just kind of showing, like you're saying, it's showing his not only his skills as a sailor, but then as a hero because he's called
Mhm.
like Leaf the Lucky from then on, and that's what they attribute his because he rescued these people, which would have been Gudrid and her
Yeah,
group. But if
and
he had rescued them, they wouldn't have spent the winter, or he would have spent the winter with them, but he's not mentioned in this at all, and he would have been mentioned in this. So we are thinking he probably wasn't the one that rescued them. That
mm,
was a different thing. I think it was later.
yeah,
I think it was
the
a different group of
timing doesn't
people.
quite match up
Yeah,
with Leif and what he was doing.
yeah. There is another shipwreck that Gudrid is in later,
Mhm.
um, but so, yeah, it just like you said, it muddies the water, but it's not hugely important. They get to Greenland, they don't get all the way to Eric's house, and they
Yeah.
have to spend the winter with a man who is pagan, a farmer who is pagan, and he's not just a farmer, it's not just this one little farm huddled away. And it's called in Hoff's it's on the
Um,
tip
wrote down, okay, here we go. Heriolfsness.
okay.
Heriolfsness. It's Thorkel At Heriolfsness, that's his land, lived a man named Thorkel. He was a man of ability and an excellent husbandman. He received Thorborn and all his ship's company and entertained them well during the winter.
Yep. So he's a wealthy guy, and Greenland at this point. So we know Eric went there and set up his community. And this is, we find out from this next part of the story too, it's settled enough where people can travel from farm to farm. They have a social network. They have
Yeah.
a organized group. It's not just these, cave dwellers in Greenland they are having a hard time. They're starving right now. It's kind of a famine time. Had been a lean summer, and it was a lean winter.
And they were making as a Greenlander, they were producing trade items. So they would go up to the north of Greenland in these, instead of raiding groups, it seems like they'd go up in the summer to get walrus tusks, walrus skins, which were highly valued in the market. And as the last few, we know that there's some climate stuff going on that's kind of, things there's having droughts and things like that are making life a little tricky for these settlers in Greenland. And not only that, but, when your whole tribe goes up to the north, half of them were not returning.
Yeah.
So they're slowly losing their people to this stuff. And as we see, Greenland will limp along a little bit, but eventually they're going to have to leave it. So at this point in time, when Gudrid lands, there's a starvation going on, there's drought, there's some lean times. So the fact that this Thorkel is willing to take in this group of people, I mean, that's his honorable obligation. But we find out they're all a little worried about what's happening.
I wonder if if Eric the Red had this set up for them. Well, if they were shipwrecked, but then they made it. I don't know. I almost feel like Eric maybe knew they were there, and this guy, I don't know. That's just me. I'm
Like
speculating.
some recompense, or he knew Eric would take care of him.
He knew this guy could handle this many people coming in. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But anyway, so the farmer that they land is called Thorburn, right? Or is that what you said? Or did you say Thorkel?
Thorkel.
Thorkel. Okay, Thorkel. Isn't that interesting? Because that's Thorkel with two. This one has two L's. They leave because of the Thorkel from Iceland, right? That's just interesting.
Yeah, that's interesting. Well, they can't escape their fate then.
No, from one Thorkel to the next. Okay, so they land, this whole group, they're staying there this winter. We know Gudrid's dad is very Christian. And Gudrid was raised with her dad being Christian, but then also raised with her foster parents, who we know are, if not fully Christian at this point, they definitely have pagan, Celtic, and maybe a little bit of Norse religiosity beliefs.
Yeah.
And then also I think just in living in Iceland herself, and again if she was married first, somehow associated enough with the Norse group of people that made it into one of the sagas, she's well versed in both, and this is how we find it out from this part of the story. Do you want me to read this part, or do you want to?
Go ahead.
Okay. I'm reading. I have two versions of my saga.
Okay.
I don't know which one I like. I'll just read this. So I'll just tell it. In the winter, so when everybody was kind of hunkered down on their farm, done hunting, done going up to get everybody's back from the hunts and everything, it was a custom, it says, of this woman named Torborg, and she's called the little vulva. So a vulva, Volva. She's also could be called Little Sybil, according to one of the translations. Is a magic woman, a prophetess, a sorceress. I wrote down kind of to kind of get an idea of exactly what she was.
Mm-hmm.
She is so vulva translated means wand wed, wed to a wand. So, or a staff carrier or a seeress. So she's someone that can see the future. They also would have had somebody called a heater, Heidr, and that kind of goes more into like the Freya, I think.
Mm-hmm.
A cedar.
I asked the question, what were the qualifications for becoming one of these?
Oh,
So
interesting. Okay.
she appears here. There was a certain woman in the settlement whose name was Thorborg. She was a prophetess called Little Sybil. She had 9 sisters, all of whom were prophetesses, but she was the only one left alive. And so I'm like, well, okay, how do you become one? It says the primary requirement was being female. Many vulvas were taught by their mothers or female elders. In the saga we're reading, the character Gudrid, they say, knows the necessary songs because her foster mother taught it to her. Most historical accounts describe vulvas as elderly women. This age was associated
Yeah,
with
that's
the
right.
stage of life where
Right.
women had moved beyond the duties of child rearing. The practice of it involved entering deep trances and traveling between worlds. And so,
Yeah. So she
yeah.
was more like there's a word for it too, which you can go into a deep trance and kind of there almost I always forget it, astral project, kind of leave your body
Mhm,
and go somewhere else.
mhm,
And you can do different ways to do it. It's interesting to find out how she did it. She
mhm,
actually calls spirits to her,
mhm,
and it's a group effort. She needs some people to help her do that, to do the right kind of thing. There's a type of sorcery, Nordic sorcery called Galdr, Galdr, which is a high-pitched singing to attract spirits. And I'm wondering, so let me just read this part then. Okay,
yeah,
because we're referring to things that we haven't told people about yet.
yes,
So it was a custom of Torberg, the little seeress, in the wintertime to make a circuit, and people invited her to their houses. So you'd be like, okay, everybody, on the 22nd, the sorceress is coming over. We got to get ready. We got to clean. We need this list. And then we're going to ask her, you can ask her your questions. And I get the sense that there was a general community question that they wanted to know, which was, when is this famine and these hard times going to end? Then it seems
mhm,
like there was more personal one-on-one time
mhm,
later on too. So this would be a really big deal. You were going to get your, if you're pagan, your big religious, a prophetess, a sorceress to come to your home. And we know that these women are highly revered. We can talk about burials that we find that are found later in a minute. But
mhm,
they invited her to their houses, especially those that had any curiosity about the season or desire to know their fate. Like I was saying, you had the general question, personal question. And because Thorkel, this farmer, was the chief Franklin around, he was the community leader of this group, he considered that it concerned him to know when the scarcity which overhung the settlement should cease. So when are we going to be done with this starvation and these hard times? He invited, therefore, the Spae-Queen. So that's what this saga calls her, a Spae-Queen. And I looked that up. Do you have it? What a Spae-Queen is?
It refers to her staff.
Yeah.
They also call her the staff bearer.
Yeah. So
Um,
she is a type of sorceress that would have a magic wand.
yeah.
um
You mentioned before, I loved kind of what you said about the staff that the vulva carries, and they're buried with them often.
yes.
Um, it's kind of an anchor in a certain sense because she is going to travel spiritually between worlds and between past and future, and that kind of symbolize she can anchor in any world
Yeah.
she's in, or
I read some things that it is because they kind of described it where they like some will start spinning the rod like this and then kind of get into a trance, and then as they're traveling through times and space and this is the one thing they hold on to kind of ground them, that they can kind of bring back to them. So that
Mm,
it's used that way. I know, like, if you ask people that use wands now in practices,
mhm,
it's used to draw the circle or to point out different objects. I mean, it is a tool for work now also.
uh-huh,
Common That's why I think it's exciting to see that this long ago, it was such an important thing too, and like you said, in burials, they find it. There's a very famous burial where there are 2 women found, um, I can't remember, I think it starts with an O, the site, but, the burial is like a queen's burial. It's just elaborate. It's got horses and wagons, and they find her wand, her staff, and it's beautiful, and it's bronze at the top, and it's not this woman's because this is in Iceland, but over in Norway and Sweden, there's several different burial sites that prove what we're about to read isn't just a fantasy saga. They have found artifacts of her this outfit we're going to describe head to
mhm,
toe, beginning with the wand,
mhm,
which is just so cool. And it
mhm,
can be made out of brass. It can be made out of wood. It can be made out of iron, bronze. It's usually 2 to 3 feet long. It's for energy and protection. One of the cool things that we like, especially, is sometimes a woman's wand would resemble the distaff,
mhm,
which was every woman had a distaff because it's how they are
mhm,
constantly making thread, and we will learn later in this culture, creating thread to create wool to create sails is like a nonstop job, just
right,
constantly
right,
a constant job. So it's cool that they're blending in this women's work, daily work, with also a woman's magical power. And you're like you said, it was women that did this. There were
mhm,
some men and wizards that would do other things, but the real known sorceress, the real power and magic came from a woman, a
mhm.
crony woman, and woman of age.
A woman
So,
who has well traveled
yes.
between the worlds of death and life.
Mhm. Very good.
Um, okay, so we're going to meet her. Um, and it says just an interesting thing. It says for many, so you've got the young women who are being trained. So what I kind of said, well, how do they recognize something in the young girl, or is it a familial thing? And it says that accounts suggest that certain strange behaviors, or maybe not strange, but unique behaviors seem to show up in young
Hmm.
children, so that they can speak of spirits, or they survive near
Mhm.
death experiences, something that marks them in that they're on this path to be this seeress or prophetess. And some say that, you know, her wisdom and foresight would reveal destiny and fate. So it's a child that sometimes we say they have an old soul,
Mhm.
or, there's something that people recognize that's different about her beyond the household magic.
Yeah, that's cool.
Um, and so once someone's marked with this innate talent, they would usually travel with their mentor or their vulva. Um, who usually traveled with an entourage of young girls who assisted in the rituals, effectively acting as apprentices. They'd learn the herbal lore. So
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah, so we'll see as we go forward. What else is interesting to me about this is, as we discussed today, the detail that these sagas carry of this one cedar ritual is valuable and so interesting, and the fact that Gudrid's involved in this, um, is really interesting.
I
So,
agree.
yeah, so we're gonna and it survived the Christian rewriting several centuries later, that they kept the detail in there, which shows you there was something even at their Christian rebirth, something embedded in them about this
Right.
ceremony that was important. So anyway,
Yeah,
go
because
for it.
when you read all the sagas, the detail of this outfit that she's wearing is extremely unique to have it be so detailed. Um, and then again, to have it be then scientifically proven. It is kind of nice. It does give me a little bit more comfort in the Christian rebirth of these or writing down of these orally passed down
Mm,
sagas, that there was importance given to certain things that we and there is reliability there on a lot of
yeah.
it too. You'll read a lot of books that they'll tell you the saga, or they'll tell you some kind of thing that historical, but then they'll blow it off because it was translated by Christians, or it was it's a saga, there's no proof and blah blah blah. But because of this, and then the proof found, and again we'll have another situation of a saga that was blown off and then they found,
Mm,
um gives this credibility. We're not just talking magic and Marvel comic books here. So, oh, go ahead.
in the saga of the Vinland accounting of this, it is so detailed, but even this, there's a line in it that says, well, Thorkel, he wanted to find out if what was upon them and if it would cease, but then they describe it as the night's entertainment. So to me, that's the
Yeah.
little Christian
Right.
guy in there.
Right.
Like, this is just for entertainment purposes. There's no magic happening here. But yeah,
That's
anyway,
funny.
so okay,
Okay,
so
so I'll keep going. And so it was blah blah blah. So it was her custom to go spend the winter visiting one after another the farms that she had been invited to, which is interesting. They say that too. So she doesn't go to every farm; she has to be invited. And again, that goes some farms maybe were Christian or were leaning away from it. Mostly by people curious to learn of their own future or what was in store for the coming year. Since Thorkel was leading, I'll also point this out too. To have to wait a whole year to find out revelation from the other side, whatever that is to you, is interesting. That would
mhm,
get frustrating if then Christianity came and said, "No, you can." Okay, so anyway, so they had to
yeah,
wait. Since Thorkel was leading the farmer people felt it was up to him to find out when the hard times which had been oppressing them would let up. Thorkel invited the seers to visit, and preparations were made to entertain her well, as was the custom of the time when a woman of this type, and I highlighted that, was received. A high seat was set for her, and again, we talked about high seat doesn't necessarily mean elevation. It means it's the seat of honor. In this
mhm,
case, though, we do find out, and they did find in different artifacts that for these kind of rituals, they were elevated higher. It was a platform kind of
mhm,
raised for it. She complete with a cushion. It was stuffed with chicken feathers, which is interesting. Probably like air, or I don't know why chicken feathers. Did you look into that? Why chicken
I
feathers?
didn't look into I looked into every other
I know,
symbology,
I didn't either.
but I didn't look into the chicken
Maybe
feather.
that was the type of feather they had on hand, easier?
Um, yeah,
Maybe it's a translation, maybe it was more of a fowl.
I would think well, I have, poultry feathers, which is the same thing.
Mhm.
You'll have to look that up if anyone wants to know, because every other thing they mention
Has a
has a
reason.
symbology to it.
Yeah, and when you're talking about sorcery or anything like this, every single ingredient,
Mhm.
quote unquote, has a purpose. So chicken
Yeah.
feathers is interesting. Um, that's not
Yeah.
it's not a local bird. It's not an indigenous bird to anywhere. So that means it probably came from more of the tradition of Norway or Europe.
Mhm.
So that's interesting. Um, when she arrived one evening, along with a man who had been sent to fetch her, and so she's escorted through these farms. One farm will go get her from the other farm where she was doing work the day before or whatever. And here we get into her outfit. So she was wearing a blue mantle, Some translations will say black, but when you dig into it, that translation means blue based on the type of dye. Did you find that out too? Kinda?
Yeah, she was clad in a dark blue cloak.
Yeah, okay.
Mm,
With the strap, which was adorned, so her strap or her mantle was adorned with precious stones right down to the hem. About her neck, she wore a string of glass beads, and on her head, a hood of black, or we'll say blue, lambskin lined with white cat skin. So, and I'll have an opinion on that in a minute. She bore a staff with a knob at the top adorned with brass, set with stones on top. About her waist, she had a linked charm belt with a large purse. A charm belt is interesting.
mhm.
With a large purse. In it, she kept the charms which she needed for her predictions. She wore calf skin boots lined with fur. And then I think in your translation, it talks about it had metal
Yeah, she wore
latches.
upon her feet shaggy calfskin shoes with long, tough latchets.
Those are
On
cool.
the
So
end, there were large brass buttons.
yeah, super cool. Yeah, and large pewter knobs. So they're calling it pewter in this one on the ends. On her hands, she wore gloves of catskin, white and lined with fur. So again, they're really pointing out this white fur lined hood and gloves. This translation's calling it catskin. I saw one that's calling it ermine, which I question that because that's such a precious fur that was really more important in the more medieval time. So I wonder if
Right.
that's a translation, backwards
Mm,
translation. And so this outfit is phenomenal.
yeah.
We've read about normal Viking attire, and it's cool. It's beautiful. They had color. It was, they did have the mantle and the beads and the brooches and things, but to have this described this way with the charm belt and the purse, is
And you're
cool.
saying we've found those items in graves now,
Yes.
archaeological
Right.
findings kind of support this. So, and in this paragraph, you could spend forever researching, okay, the significance of the dark blue cloak, the stones
Mhm.
down to the hem, the glass beads around the neck, lining things with cat skin, and her touchwood or her girdle, her charm belt. They found those, and they're so interesting. Those are her tools of the trade kind of
Yeah.
hanging from her.
Yeah, and in these belts, in these actual digs, in these purses, the name of the really famous site is Oseberg, Oseberg, and it's where they found two possible sorceresses buried together, or some think it was a main sorceress and her protege, or somebody um, buried together. But in that, they found in her purse, I can tell you what they found. They
Mm,
found white powder lead, so they're not sure what that was used for, if it was to blow into the fire or kind of a dust, powdery, something used in the ritual. Um, Toe rings. So they had rings
mm.
on their toes. She shall have music wherever she goes.
Oh,
I don't know.
yes.
Which is, yeah, I did read something about that fairy tale, about that
Mhm.
nursery rhyme run. Rings on her fingers, rings on her toes. She shall have music wherever she goes.
And music is
Um,
supports her to these other worlds.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a channeling tool.
Mhm.
They found cannabis, sativa L,
That's
and
good.
either,
That's helpful.
yes, so they were chill and probably had to have a lot of food. That was probably a problem when they
Mhm.
all got the munchies, but
Yeah.
she
Well, that's why the feast is follows.
yeah. Oh, yeah, I mean, he's a talk. But, it was either used for, hallucinogenics or healing too,
Mhm,
pain, they think. I mean, this is
mhm,
just whatever. Henbane seeds, which when rubbed together can again create a hallucination,
mhm.
and animal bones for divination. And then they found spinning tools. They found sewing tools, which again is so cool. The
Yes.
very thin line, thin veil between sewing, weaving, knitting, creating,
Mhm.
and magic. I think it's so
Because
cool.
there's that thin line between healing. She can heal or she can curse. So to
Yeah.
entertain a seer like this who also has practical magic, um, you can see in their preparations how careful they're going to be because you're
Hmm.
bringing in this person that could harbor good tidings or bad, and you can see them trying to placate her the whole time through this. They're
Yeah.
placing the seat carefully. They're part of the ritual too, trying to work this good magic that they want to have
Yeah.
happen. It's
It's the
so
very next line. It says, when she entered, everyone was supposed to offer her respectful greetings. And then she responded according to how the person appealed to her. So right away, they're assessing each other's energy and behavior. And, it was a ritual right from the beginning.
yeah, and weren't you saying she even had Thorkel take her he gave her a tour of his farm, and she
Hmm.
looked at each animal, and she looked at each pen, and she looked at each person in the room,
Yeah.
and she's kinda just
Yep. It says
gauging.
he took her, he asked her to come survey his flock, his servants, and his buildings. And these people have been preparing for a long time because she had very specific things she wanted to eat before, and they were
Mhm.
the hearts of all the animals that lived on the farm. So, and this kid's milk porridge, which you had found out something interesting about the
Well,
beef.
yeah,
Yeah.
so she said this translation is I like all of them, but, Thorkel took the Sibyl by the hand and led her to the seat. He bade her run her eyes over man and beast and home. She had little to say concerning all these, so she's just silent.
Yeah.
The tables were brought forth in the evening, and it remains to be told what manner of food was prepared for the prophetess. And then they give you, if you want me to say this, they give you
Yeah.
a list. A
Yeah, let's
porridge
do.
of goat's bee stings was made for her, and for meat there were dressed the hearts of every kind of beast which could be attained there. She had a brass spoon and a knife with the handle of a walrus tusk. Um, so as I'm reading this, first of all, the first thing I read in this saga is Gudrid stuck on a shipwreck. Then she's taken to this guy's home. Then this woman is brought in this array of, you know, we haven't seen that yet, in the sagas. And then they're feeding her a porridge of goat's bee stings and meats of the heart of every beast. So,
And you looked up what that goat's bee sting is, right?
yes, it's so because I'm like, they would not just mention that. So I asked, what are goat's bee stings in the pagan world? Um, and so the goat is a symbol of fertility, and they're central to several pagan cosmology, representing vitality and the general forces of the earth. Um, the goat's porridge, if you look into it a little farther, it has to be the colostrum of a goat. So it's not just with the milk, it's with the colostrum that's formed before the milk comes. So it's right after the goat has given
Birth.
birth.
Yeah.
And the colostrum famously is supposed to be the most um, really important for a baby to have.
Mhm.
It's not really nutritional, but it gives them all sorts of
The
um, yeah.
antibodies, the
But
immunities.
think about Thorkel and the women who were in charge of goat milking. They'd have to grab that stuff quick because it lasts maybe a day or two.
So and lambs aren't born in the winter, so they either had
No.
to have a specific ewe that would
Yeah.
have just given birth, timed perfectly for her, or they had a way to preserve it. I don't know
Well,
how.
they say that they had something called the Yule goat, a surviving pagan tradition.
Oh,
The
cool.
Yule goat represents the end of harvest and the return of the sun.
Oh, so that would have been December time.
Yeah.
Okay. That's
So it
cool.
represents hope, I guess. And
Yeah.
then I'm wondering, okay, so there's a porridge of this. I can see that that's symbolic, but what about goats' bee stings was made for her? The porridge of goats' bee stings. And bees are viewed as sacred messengers of the
Mhm.
gods. A bee sting is rarely seen. I'm reading it. Do you care?
I don't care. This is
Okay.
fascinating.
A bee sting is rarely seen as a random event by pagans. Instead, it's interpreted as a catalyst for change. A sting is often viewed as a shock to the system or a spiritual wake up call meant to pierce an
Mhm.
individual's energy field. So her prophecy or her purpose there is to kind of be that sting to kind of a wake up call to the spirit.
Yeah.
Bee sting also symbolized boundaries and lessons. It can symbolize the consequences of crossing spiritual boundaries or represent a painful but necessary lesson. And you think about Gudrid, who is she's crossed physical boundaries. She's also crossing spiritual boundaries because we know she was raised in this hodgepodge of the pagan and Christianity.
Mhm.
And it also is a divine intervention meant to serve as a sharp correction to receive order
Yeah.
in the world. So,
It's cool because even when when you get into, like, really woo-woo things, start reading about, like, the ancient stuff and the mystics, bees are hugely important. There's a whole podcast of one guy wrote a whole
mm,
book about the importance of bees in magic or mysticism from Babylonian Egyptian times, so that here we are in Iceland, and it's still carried over that far. I think it's really cool, you know?
yeah, I mean, it's just and the preparation is all done to in Norse tradition, the reference to a prophet is drinking bee stings. The fact that they know what to give her, they have the preparations means it's pretty important. And the consumption of this specific meal was a prelude to the cedar ritual. So
Yes.
everyone's working, including her, hard to make sure this happens. After eating, the vulva would sit on a raised scaffold. And then so this was important.
Yeah,
So Thorkel knows what he's doing,
yeah,
and we can assume that everyone else knows too.
yeah, and then, with her knife, so she has
Oh,
her
yeah.
brass spoons and and it's a knife with an ivory shaft or it's 2 halves clasped with bronze bands, and the point of which had been broken off, and just briefly, we talked about that too, that when something was straddling both worlds, so in a lot of burial sites, you'll find swords that are bent or distaffs that are broken or things that have been physically altered so that they can be identified A, that's no longer for use in this world, and B, it's
Mhm.
now consecrated or ready for use in the next world. So they really, really, really point out in every translation of this saga that the tip of the knife was broken. That was a really important part to include in this saga, and I think it's because she transcends both worlds and her
Yeah.
tools also, right? So her
Her tools
knife.
work in this world and in the next.
Yes. And swords were always bent or broken in some way, so for her little knife, even that was
Mhm.
consecrated for use of, more I don't know, what's the word? Use in the other word side as well. So
And
that's cool.
one part that strikes me in this next part we'll talk about, which I guess we can get to that,
Oh,
but
yeah, let's do that.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead. Or do you
I'm
want
gonna
to?
write it down and bring it up later.
Okay. So so that night she observed everything. They had the meal. They all are very polite and greet her. Thorkel is very careful to make sure everybody's greeting her correctly. And then he tries to get move it along, and that's, can you tell us what's going to happen? And she says, "No, I need to sleep and then I'll do it tomorrow." So that must have been like, "Oh, okay." That's how I think, nervous, like, "Let's just get it done and get her on her way," maybe a little bit, but
Yeah.
she was tired, she'd just come from another farm, you know?
Yeah.
So anyways, she slept, and they didn't get to do it that night, so they had to do everything the next day. The
Yes,
following
and in
day
this translation, if you don't care, it says,
no, go
Thorkel
ahead.
goes up to her after she's eaten and asks how she is pleased with the home and the character of the folk, and how speedily she would be likely to become aware of that concerning which he had questioned her, and the people were anxious to know. And she said, "Nope, I need to sleep on it."
Yeah. 'Cause she's our age, she's like, "I just went from all these different farms, you know, I'm" so,
I
yeah,
ate
so
the
she has to
grody
sleep.
porridge. Yeah.
Right. So it's a lot of work. Yeah. So the next day, she, hi, kitty. She they get to it, and people are again bringing her the things she needs. He's gonna lay right on my book.
That's
Okay.
good.
So I have to do it from my brain. So um she's getting prepared. And so it's interesting. She's on a raised platform. She's eaten the things, she's done the things with her body that she needs to do to prepare for this work. Shows that she's at making an effort herself. Like she's not a
Yeah.
snake salesman or a scam or anything like that. Like this is a ritual, a religious important ritual and
Mhm.
to be respected and honored. And so one of the things she does is and like you said, normally these women would have traveled in an entourage where they could
Mhm.
have set their little girls like, okay, now get in a circle.
Mhm.
We need to do certain things to invoke these spirits. And what she needs is a certain song or chant done in a certain way, um, where invoking spirits, inviting certain spirits that will come and help her do her prophetess work,
Which
correct?
tells me, there's been a disruption in the system because
Yes.
normally she had 9 sisters who would be doing she's had some losses, and
Yeah,
now she's a lone woman without
an entourage.
these girls that know the songs, that know how to help her, aid her in getting to get the spirits to come to her.
Mhm.
And so there's a real sense of loss and disruption in the whole system.
Yeah. I
Mm,
wonder how she did it at other farms. There must have been enough people at these other farms to be able to, because
yeah,
she makes a little announcement like, "Who is here that can help me sing the songs we need to sing?" And no other woman knows how. There's enough
no,
women that they can form a circle, so that says something, but there's not
yeah,
any of those women that know the song or the chant of
which
this yearly done ritual.
symbolically speaks to the death of these pagan traditions, speaks to the of women's magic and women's seeing, you know?
Right. So there is one woman in the crowd who says, I know it," and it's Gudrid, and she
Yeah.
kinda steps up and says, "I was taught by my foster mother how to do these songs," and this little sorceress lady is like, "Well, great, can you do it for me?" And Gudrid is like, "I'm a Christian, um, so I'm not gonna do it," basically, and the sorceress says, "Well, Thorkel will provide me with the things I need." So she kind of relays to Thorkel, you know, "You need to be" I don't know,
Yeah.
I don't picture it as like a threat or anything like that, but, so Gudrid, f on behalf of her host, will do this chanty, pagan-y, non-Christian thing,
And you
and
almost get the feeling that in how she responds, she's trying to set this part of herself
mhm.
aside. She doesn't think she can enter the Christian world this way.
Yeah, do you have the
Um,
quote? My cat's
I
laying on my
do. I can
book
have the
now.
coat. So she's on the morrow when the day was far spent. So the seer, the prophetess slept in. So they're all waiting. Such preparations were made as were necessary to enable her to accomplish her soothsaying. She bade them bring me the women in the group who knew the incantation which was required to work her spells. and which she called warlocks, which obviously she wouldn't have called
That's a
them that.
different translation. No,
Yeah.
she didn't call them
But
that.
such women were not to be found. So Thorkel, in his careful preparations, um, hadn't thought of that he needed women. So thereupon a search was made throughout the house to see whether anyone knew this incantation. And then says Gudrid, although I am neither skilled in the black art nor a sibyl, yet my foster mother Haldis taught me in Iceland that spell song, which she calls warlocks. So then Thorborg answered to her, then thou art wise in season, which is interesting. I, Gudrid, said, this is an incantation and ceremony of such a kind that I do not mean to lend it any aid, for that I am a
Hello?
Christian woman. So are you there?
Oh, there you are. You were frozen.
Oh,
So I think the last thing I heard was black art.
so she says, I'm not, so obviously the seer says you'll work in season, thou art wise for your age, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But then Gudrid kind of hedges and she said, this is an incantation and ceremony of such a kind that I do not mean to lend it any aid, for I am a Christian woman. So we kind of see where Gudrid wants to, she's traveling to another season in her life or another part of her life. And then the seer, the sorceress says, it might so be that thou couldst give thy help to the company here and still be no worse woman than before. However, I leave it with Thorkel to provide my needs. So like you
Right.
said, she throws it in his hands.
Right.
Thorkel urged Gudrid that she must needs comply with his wishes.
Yes.
So that's interesting. Then the woman then made a ring round about, while Thorborg sat on the spell dais, which the high seat.
Yeah. So mine
And
says the women formed a warding ring around the platform raised for sorcery.
okay.
With Torbjorg perched atop it.
Yeah. So we get to see, we know that Gudrid has been called a reckoning woman, a wise woman, a good woman. We didn't quite know yet that she was also skilled in the black arts and incantations um and that this prophetess who had looked through everyone's soul basically the night before and all the animals on the farm, she um basically says thou art wise in season, so she could see her abilities, I think.
Yeah. I think so.
Okay.
Yeah. So Scooter does it. So she does the chant, she does the song, depending on what version you're doing. She does the incantations to attract these spirits. And they say people, it's like a Trump thing. People said there had never heard such a fair voice, that she did such a beautiful job that she was impressive, and now she has it all written in the saga for her. And the seeress thanked her for the chant. She said many spirits had been attracted who thought the chant fair to hear. That's cool, I think. Though earlier they wished to turn their backs on us. So this is interesting. So here's the sorceress kind of keeping her call to action, keeping herself in business, I think, a little bit. She said many spirits had heard the song and they were attracted and they came because they were thinking of turning their backs to this. They weren't going to be here. Maybe that's why she didn't do it the night before. She didn't have any spirits to
Oh.
call. I don't know. She
Oh.
said, though earlier they wished to turn their backs on us and refuse to do our bidding. So, and we're talking sorceress world, like to her, it's not a spooky thing or a scary thing, I'm sure. They weren't going to do harm, but just her tools of invoking spirits was not going to work until Gudrid was singing.
Yeah, I mean, this, as we know from Yggdrasil, or we know the nature of the gods and goddesses, that they do change their minds. And,
Mm-hmm.
if they're not pleased, then maybe she's not going to get access to this stuff.
Right.
So whatever Gudrid, provided in that ceremony, this lady's saying she changed she basically
Yeah.
changed your fate.
Yeah. Right. Because
Um,
I'm sure they're believing that these spirits not only are going to be telling the future, they're probably going to have something to do with the future, you know?
mhm.
Um,
And I also like, the wisdom of the seeress because she essentially is teaching Gudrun in a sense, and this might just be me,
oh, I feel
but
like that too, though. Like it's a
do you?
motherly moment. I do
Like
feel like that.
like, Gudrun, it doesn't be you pagan, be you Christian, whatever you say you are, you have this gift, right? You've been
Yes.
called. So whatever
Yeah.
season of life you're in, you still carry this ability.
Right. I feel like that too, that it was in all the translations. I feel like the
Mhm.
message that came through was that this was a nice sorceress doing her religion to the best of her ability. These were
Right.
people using the religion they knew and loved to the best of their ability. And really, Gudrid doing this on behalf of these people, even though she didn't believe it, was doing her religion to the best of her ability, you know? And
Right.
it has a just a positive feeling, I think, in the
Mhm.
end of what happened. Her dad left for the evening because he didn't wanna be around the pagans, and so
Mhm.
he was invited back after. It's just so her dad's not even there. I don't know how he left, if it was in a huff or if he tried to have her come with him, but for some reason, she was there, and this sorceress, then she goes ahead and she grants their wishes or their questions and says that this time will pass, your hard times are over, shortly will we be done. And she has one-on-one times with the other people to kind of probably answer whatever questions they're asking.
Mhm.
And then takes a moment to give Gudrid a little bit of a blessing or a little bit of a reading, I guess,
Mhm.
for her. And it's cool. You want me to read it?
Yeah.
Um oh, and then also this translation just to show where Gudrid, we know that she learned it from her mother and her foster mother. She says, Gudrid says, I'm not skilled in deep learning. Did you read this already?
Mm-mm.
I'm not skilled in deep learning. This is one translation. Nor am I a wise woman, although Halldis, my foster mother, taught me in Iceland the lore, which she called weird songs,
Mhm.
which this translation spells it Weird. I like to
Mhm.
think it's Wyrd, but whatever.
Right. Right.
Um,
Right.
she says, Then thou art wise in good season, that lore and the ceremony are of such a kind that I propose to be of no assistance. Oh, no, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so then this is what the sorceress tells Gudrid. I don't think I like this one, but it's fine. She says, And for thee, Gudrid, will I recompense straight away for that aid of thine which has stood us in good stead. So, as a thank you for doing this, I'm going to
Mhm.
then tell you some truths.
Mhm.
Thou shalt, thy destiny is clear to me and foreseen. Thou shalt make a match here in Greenland, a most honorable one, though it not will not be long lived. Not it will not. She's gonna meet someone, get married in Greenland, but it's not gonna last a very long time. Not a long lived one for thee, because thy ways lie. This is so Christiany written. Hold on, let me
Well, I
read.
could read this one, and then I'll read this one, and
Okay, I'll read this one.
we can
And you,
share.
Gudrid, I will reward on the spot for the help we have received. Since your fate is now very clear to me, you will make the most honorable of matches here in Greenland, though you won't be putting down roots here, as your
Mm.
path leads to Iceland, and from you will it be descended a long and worthy line. So you'll have lots of kids, and there'll be a worthy line. And she's talking about Christian kids, so that's
Mhm.
cool. Over all the branches of that family, a bright ray will shine, which
Hmm.
is so cute. I love that.
Mhm.
May you fare well now, my child. So she's basically saying, You'll live in Greenland, you'll get married, marriage won't last. Greenland isn't your final destination. You'll go back to Iceland in the end, but Greenland is not your final destination, which maybe Gudrid was really happy to hear that. We don't know how she felt about going
Yeah,
to Greenland, and
I know. I
if her
know.
husband did just die, that totally stinks, that now she's in Greenland without a husband. If she never had a husband, it's just who knows?
And
Or
she
was she excited
still
because she loved Eric the Red's family? Maybe she was super
yeah,
excited and
but
happy.
she still is only 19, still doing the will of her father, just saw all this death, lost essentially 2 mothers. We don't know what happened to her first mother, but she lost Haldis.
Yeah.
So here's this motherly figure reaching out from her Norse or her pagan traditions, Celtic traditions to offer her, some comfort almost. Um, in this one, it says, I don't know if we need it, but the sorcerer in this translation says, Gudrid, I shall reward you out of hand because you are wiser than I supposed. Um, the fate in store for thee is now all made manifest to me. Thou shalt make a most worthy match. Um, A lineage of both great and goodly shall spring from thee, and
Mhm.
above thy line brighter rays of light shall shine than I have power clearly to unfold. So basically saying you're a little more powerful than I am, I think. And
Yeah.
now farewell and health to thee, my daughter.
I love that. So
So
it was
she's
very pleasant
almost
and
been
lovely.
adopted into a distaff line of this line of seers and prophetesses almost.
Mhm.
I don't know.
I think
Um,
I think and then now she's ready with respect and a kind of a blessing to move forward. She's gonna marry, well, I don't know what Thornstein is. She's gonna marry into a half pagan, half Christian family pretty soon,
mhm.
and she's gonna go on some pretty important adventures.
But
Um,
her gift, whatever her spiritual, whether she sees it as this drive to Christendom where her spirit's leading her, or the spirit that she's called from this other world, somehow it's okay to have both almost. The prophetess didn't deny her access. She actually thanked her and
yeah,
mm,
right.
it's an interesting thing.
That's why I think Gudrid, she attracted us for so many different reasons.
Mhm.
Before I even really thought, I mean, this part was, she attracted at me for a different reason that we'll get to at the very end, that we all
Okay.
know. But this was such a beautiful, the Christian pagan question wasn't really any interesting to me when we started this, but here she
Mhm.
is totally being a link for both in a very respectful way. Not even on Iceland, and Iceland did turn out to be the nicest, the most gentle, conversion from pagan to Christian, at that
Mhm.
time, I think.
Mhm.
But, yeah, I just thought that was so cool. These 2 women, kind of powerful
Mhm.
religiously in their own way, can come together to give this group of people some peace, right? And some
Mhm.
I thought it was cool.
And
So
yeah,
anyway, yeah.
yeah, and to me, I just think of loss. When I look at that Sybil when she showed up at that farmhouse in this and sometimes I picture her, she's the last line of 9. It's the last gasping breath of
All her
pain.
sisters are dead. Yeah.
Yeah, her robe, maybe it has jewels, but I picture it looking a little worse for wear, maybe. She got it out of her trunk and put it on, and then I see Gudrid, who has just lost her female line. You know,
Yeah,
she
shipwrecked.
she's a lone woman, and then she makes this connection or this blessing from a woman of her, this other traditional style. Um, and it probably was comforting to her to think, okay, well, I'm on the right path. I'm supposed to be in Greenland here for a little while. And I just thought it was interesting how um, we got a view into this window of what living paganism looked like at this time period. and how it was probably willing to live amongst other creeds
Yeah.
if they would have allowed it to.
Yeah. Which they did
Um,
here for a while. And there was a law that you could when Iceland finally adopted Christianity, there was the law that we're Christian now, but you can do what you need to do behind closed doors or whatever.
mhm,
Greenland is interesting that the first Christian chapel was Eric the Red's wife's chapel, Thordhild's chapel. And Greenland is a interesting place where it was the European people that were run off by the indigenous people from other places that came to hunt and eventually settle. So it
mhm,
didn't take, you know, it's
mhm.
but I don't know, just kind of a cool, interesting
It
place.
it sorta speaks to what Gudrid symbolizes in everything in the sagas is this bridge between worlds almost,
Mhm.
that Green was gonna live for a minute, but then die and keep moving on. So, it starts her travels that we know she can travel into both worlds. If she can speak to spirits coming,
And not be afraid.
not be
I mean,
afraid.
nowadays, the idea of that is, "Woo,"
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. And she can, that prophetess, before she even started, she reckoned the crowd. She sorta
Mhm.
felt them out, and so
Mhm.
I thought it was interesting. For many, the vulva status was fully embraced later in life. So the fact that the seeress said, "You are wise in your season," kind of speaks to that. Often after a woman had passed the childbearing years, this was viewed as a spiritual awakening where she moved from role of wife and mother to a wand bearer who belonged to the whole community.
Yeah, because you have the maiden season that you're a maiden,
Mhm,
right? Like, it's the
mhm,
spring of your life, and you're a beautiful maiden, and all the wonderful things that a maiden is and can be and you feel like. And then you go into your mother, your bearing fruits and your harvest time and the mother time, and that's magical and wonderful and all the awesome things that come with that and, the power that comes with that. And
mhm.
then that ends, and then it's so interesting because it is, uh, advertised as being the worst time of a woman's life. But man, it's pretty powerful, and it's the crone phase, right? And that's your
Yeah,
after the harvest, and it gets the cold, dark time of the year, winter, and the symbolism with that, but think of all the how magical and I don't know, when you're sitting in the fall or the end of summer. I'm gonna get really weird here. But, at the end of summer when you get, like, the first smell of somebody using their wood-burning stove and that first smell of
yeah,
firewood, right? And you get
yeah.
this feeling, and I wish there was a word for it, a cozy, a potential, some kind of powerful word for what's to come in the
Mhm,
winter and what that means. And
mhm.
that's what this time feels like, this crone time
I
in a
agree.
woman's life.
I
And
agree, and think
and
about
you
yeah, go ahead.
Oh,
Sorry.
well, you can't tell anyone, no one's gonna believe you that it's great because you have the wrinkles in the neck, and your body's doing weird things, and maybe you just lost your identity when your kids all moved out, who knows? There's all these things happening that
Mhm.
seem like, "Oh, it's the end,
Loss.
this is the
Seems like
worst." Yeah,
loss. Yeah.
and if you feel it and own it and settle into it, it's amazing, and the power of it. No wonder this kind of work in this day, in the pig whatever, was set aside for women like this because, man, you can really do some work. Does that make sense?
It is really true, it's restorative because you think about before I went, like, to stayed in Montana for a while over the
Mhm.
winter, we would only be there in the summers, And everyone would say, "Oh, well, the winters are horrible. They're horrible. You just don't want to be here during them." And then I spent
You
a
did
winter
it. Mhm.
and you see the preparations in the like almost like motherhood in the fall. You're chopping your wood, you're getting ready, you're all, in a flurry. And then the first snow falls, and then your power goes out, and then you're in your house and you've stored up your food and you've got your books and you're knitting, and you're kind of having a moment of rest
Right?
and reckoning. And you can plan and you can think, and I feel like that's what this crony stage is, but no one recognizes it as regenerative, or that you're you're wanting blessings on your children who seem so vulnerable in that world, and you're trying to reckon wisdom with youth.
Yeah.
And
We're being told that, like you're saying, that it's winter's so hard, it's the worst time, and it isn't. And then it's this time where here's this crone woman and
Mhm,
this maiden girl,
mhm,
and this crone woman has lost her helpers. She's just relying on this old knowledge, hoping people still have it, realizing people
mhm,
don't. And this
mhm,
maiden girl comes to the rescue with this knowledge, and she just handles it with grace, which is what I'm saying is that at this age, you've been through everything. And kind of what our job right now is to hear our children are maiden age and young
mhm,
teen whatever. And
mhm,
we get to hear all our old knowledge recited back to us in young voices, and we have to decide what to do with that. Like, do I just let that do I try to correct it and teach them what I know now, or do I respect their journey and let them
mhm,
sound kinda dumb right now or excited like, "Oh, that's an interesting path. I wonder where that takes them," and it's
mhm.
just it's cool. I don't know.
You're speaking of this really cool balance that when you have like a lot of wisdom, and even this old prophetess says you are wise in your season. And
Mhm.
that's what you're
Your
speaking
season.
to. Yeah, I'm
Right.
giving you grace in your season. And the fact that this pagan belief in the crony, or in a woman that's valuable not just to her family anymore but to her community, belongs to everyone, and they set up this space and this high seat for her to share what she sees. Well, you get Christianity in there and they're going to shut that down. No one's going to
Mhm.
provide a space for an older woman. Maybe
Mhm.
I'm just speaking because I'm mad today, but no one's going to provide a space for an older woman anymore to share her vision. And
Well, they
and
are gonna create a space, but it's a little room attached to the side of a church.
exactly, exactly. And if they want to visit you and hear your wisdom, they'll ask for it. But that's such a beautiful acknowledgement of the role of every human has importance no matter what season they are around the sun, in a community that's values
Like,
that.
worships the journey around the sun. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, yeah. So I love this moment because Gudrid, you know, she gets we see her fate, no matter what religion, no matter what it's translated into, is that's she's gonna sing that song and spirits will come to her, and that's what
Mhm.
she is.
And I will probably talk about next week then cool, uh, what's the word? The cool complement to this, because it happens from a Christian point of view. We get
That's
a
right.
Christian blessing or prediction from a Christian source that
Mhm,
mirrors this prediction almost identically. And
mhm,
so, like, saying this, that no matter what world she's in, she's still Gudrid, and whatever the source is, if it's whatever you believe the source is, the message for her journey and her path were the same. And we could take that to believe we are on this earth for a purpose. And no matter like this getting to the island, but this, off course, back on course, you are, if you can believe that it's going to be what is yours will not pass you by, right?
Right.
You end up where you are meant to be.
Yeah.
You're never in the wrong place, basically.
Right. 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 And that's why Gudrid's story is so important, that they saved this for us,
I know, I love it.
Yeah.
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 So, okay.
So I wish you all good seeing.
Yes.
All you cronies out there.
Yay. Oh, we
You
have a
all
crony
can
show
make-
coming up.
Yeah, the crony show.
We're going to do a live, we think on Saturday nights, of a crony show. We're just coming up with that word.
Okay.
We were going to call it Weird Saturday or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll come up with the name of it. But maybe a live where we sit and talk about weird stuff and local or current events, politics, conspiracy theories.
Because our kids are not wise in their season, do not want to hear my conspiracy.
So we're hoping there are other women out there and men who want to get some crony talk going.
Yeah.
In a weird way. Yeah. So anyway. So that was great.
That was great.
Yeah, and there's lots of things. We're going to harken back. I think we'll harken back to this moment a lot now moving forward. This is a pivotal moment, at least for me, us,
Me
in
too.
her story.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize this season was going to be so much about Christianity and paganism. And it doesn't have to be. It's just is turning out that way.
Well, but we are going to, there's more. We're going to talk about sailing and adventuring, all sorts of things. So
experiments people have done in the modern age. They've rebuilt the boat, which there is a trip. Well, we can go on a Viking boat trip in Norway. I think it's in the spring. You can go on their boat.
I think we need to go and do some field trips.
We need to do.
Maybe we bring a group of cronies with us.
I know. Ship of cronies. And then, we're going to talk about how they did a modern day experiment on how to make a Viking sail, which sounds kind of boring, but it's fascinating. Yeah. What it takes to actually make all these sails, and think the Vikings are sailing everywhere, these Norse people and Icelandic, and what it takes to make all that. So, and you're right. We'll get into other stuff.
Yeah, we got some fun coming. So that was great. I was happy to talk about the Catwoman.
Oh, yeah. My opinion on that is that I love my cat very much. And I would never make gloves or hats out of his skin or his fur. But I guess I could see if fur was hard and you wanted something that you loved and it was going to die and it was old anyway, maybe she made gloves and hats out of that. Also, we had to say cats are Freya's animal. So the goddess Freya, who is she's the Odin, she's the main goddess of this Norse pagan, and she had cats all over. We didn't talk a lot about the burial sites, but cats are found in burial sites. We'll talk more about burial sites.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
So anyway, that's my opinion on the cat fur.
Okay, just a little message for the cat lovers.
Yeah. Right. No cats were harmed in the filming. Okay. Yeah, we're good. Okay, well, come to distaffpodcast.com or distaffpodcast@gmail.com with any comments or questions. And thanks for listening. Okay.
Awesome.
All right.